Hare Krishna. I welcome all of you to the program this evening. And we want to thank our host, Venkat Chaitanya and Asundi Devdasi for hosting this program. Are you happy you're here? Okay. Om Gyan Gyananjana Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. The Bhagavad Gita, as you know, is one of the most important books of knowledge. We're all anxious to cultivate knowledge. And there are, briefly, two types of knowledge. One is, what is one? Material knowledge. And the other is spiritual knowledge. Material knowledge is important, we don't deny that. But spiritual knowledge is more important. Because if you don't have any spiritual knowledge, you will misuse material knowledge. Like we see today. There's no question that scientists have made great progress. There's no question that scientists are offering us comforts that we never dreamt of. Did any of you ever dream 10, 20 years ago? One day you'll have a cell telephone, the way it is today. And that's phone. You'll have all of Prabhupada's books in your pocket. At least I never dreamt of that. But today you can have a smartphone. And they have smartphone. You can have a smartphone which can accommodate all of Prabhupada's books, all of Prabhupada's letters, and allow you to shoot a video, allow you to take photographs, show you the time, and first gives you umpteen number of facilities. You can't even dream of wake you up, alarm clock. So, this has all been made possible by the efforts of modern science. Prabhupada came to the West on a ship, cargo ship. Nevertheless, at one time there were no ships. If there wasn't any technology, Prabhupada would not even have been able to come and travel all over the world. We just came to your program with the help of a car, which also is a result of technology. So we're not against technology at all. But unfortunately, technology is often misused. But whereas spiritual knowledge is a must. Without spiritual knowledge, society can never be peaceful. There's a sloka, Shama eva kevalam. All our efforts go in vain if they're not based on spiritual knowledge. So spiritual knowledge is essential. And spirituality is very essential. Many leaders around the world have acknowledged, no doubt material education is giving knowledge. Oh, they have concluded that people are growing up with no character, with bad habits, with criminal mentality. Why? Because they are not getting proper education. Prahlad Maharaj, who had a great fortune of receiving spiritual knowledge when he was in the womb of his mother, he said Kamana Ashar Pragya. We should start cultivating spiritual knowledge from the young age of 5. And if we regularly cultivate, then we grow up with character and morality. Today when you see in society, do people have character? Yes? No, all over the world, not just America. No character, no morality. There's no ethics. 3-4 years ago I was asked to speak in a conference in China on ethics in society. And everyone spoke how important it was. But everyone who was speaking was themselves violating all principles of ethics in their day-to-day life. So ethics, no doubt, is important. But you can only cultivate ethics also if you have spiritual knowledge. And this is lacking in society. Now the Vedas offer very comprehensive knowledge. The Vedas, in fact, are so voluminous that even if you read every day of your life, by the time you give up this body, you would have read only a small portion. So Vyasa summarizes the vast Vedic knowledge in the Bhagavad Gita, also known as the Song of God, which in Prabhupada's words is an educational book. It's an educational book meant for the benefit of entire society. And there was a time when people were thinking, this Bhagavad Gita is just for Hindus or Indians. But Prabhupada showed that Bhagavad Gita contains eternal philosophy for entire humanity. For example, the Bhagavad Gita points out, within the body there is a soul. This is one of the most important presentations in the Bhagavad Gita. It teaches you what is your real identity. Majority of us are born in ignorance, we live in ignorance, and we die in ignorance. But we are fortunate, we get woken up. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was explaining to Rupa Goswami. He said, Brahmanda Brahmide Kono Bhagavanaji Guru Krishna Kripapai Bhakti Lalapi. After going through unlimited number of births and deaths, is he the fortunate soul receives the Bhakti Lalapi, seed of devotional service. What do we mean by seed of devotional service? We mean knowledge that devotional service is an essential activity that we should all execute. It's not just for old people. In our country, India, what do people think? This is for old people. Prabhupada was once giving sannyas to a young American. And there was an Indian journalist in the audience. Prabhupada's age was about 72, 73 at that time, 75. And this Indian's body was about 30 years old. So he said, Swamiji, what are you doing? And our Shastra it is said, sannyas should only be given to old people. The Prabhupada said, what's the definition of old? He said, one is about to die. The Prabhupada at that time, as I said, was in his early 70s. But said, can you guarantee me that you will not die before me? He said, no. Prabhupada said, you're also old. So old means one is about to die. So very often, when our relatives discover that we are pursuing spiritual life, they say, oh, at such a young age? Then when should you pursue spiritual life? When you're old. What's the definition of old? Oh, when you're half blind, half deaf, half lame, when nobody wants to be next to you, that's when you should practice spiritual life. And as long as you have some strength in your muscles, you execute material life. That is ignorance. Due to ignorance, we fail to recognize our human birth is rare, and what the purpose of human life is. And unfortunately, instead of studying the Gita, practicing the Gita, preaching the Gita, supporting the Gita, we don't do that at all. We will read every other book but the Gita. Every other book but a book of knowledge. And in the days of the Muslim Empire in India, many of the temples were knocked down straight. The Muslims were very cruel. They destroyed many of the temples. And when the Britishers came to India, they were more diplomatic and smart. They stopped the destruction of temples. But they had their scholars come and study English, Sanskrit language. They studied the Sanskrit language and then they went back and they wrote books. How? There's Vedic literature. It's just mythology. What does mythology mean? Myth. Just imagination. It's not a reality. One famous British author said, all the Vedas are not equal to one shelf of our books. So they degraded the Vedic culture, the Vedic literature a lot. As a result, many of the so-called prominent people of our country also got influenced. Oh, that PhD from Oxford is saying that. So it must be true. So the Vedic knowledge is flawless. And Krishna summarizes it in the Bhagavad Gita. If you follow the Bhagavad Gita, you'll be in the right path. I'm just reading, I've just been to the temple and I saw a new book in the bookstore by Niranjandas Prabhu. A nice summary of the Bhagavad Gita. It's a nice book. I was reading it on the way up. So the Bhagavad Gita actually is a book of knowledge. Raja Vidya. I'm sure you've heard this sloka anytime. What does Krishna say? This knowledge is the king of education, which would imply that this is the most essential part of education. We may have PhDs, double PhD, postdoc, all these degrees. There's so many degrees. At one time I remember, if we had one PhD, it would be a big honor. We had a PhD. Now you see PhDs by the dozens. Is that right? The PhD right there. Now, I was in IIT Kanpur a few months ago, and there were about 4 or 5 PhDs in the lecture. So I asked them, how many people are doing PhD in this IIT Kanpur? He said 700. And that was just one institute in India. Even in America, I regularly meet devotees who come from, people from India who come out doing a doc, postdoc, and so on. And then they have to do research. Unless you write some research papers, you don't get your degree, isn't it? So how much research can you do? If you were to calculate total PhDs on the planet doing research, I think it would be, how many would it be? So how much research are they going to do? Except that they all copy from each other's papers. How much original stuff can you produce? Is the limit. And they admitted themselves. Well, the system is so, I wouldn't say corrupt, but I would prefer using a softer word. The system is so complicated that nobody really can do research. Once I was talking to Prabhupada in Bombay in '76. I said we should set up a Vedic Research Institute. Because in India, some of you may know, the taxation laws are such that if you donate to a research project, you can get tax benefits. So Prabhupada said, why research? All the research is done by Vyasadeva. We just have to follow it. All the research is done by Vyasadeva. We just have to follow. What does Vyasadeva say? He says, Dehinasmini yatade kamayanam nira atadayantara prapti nirasatanam. Just like this body is constantly changing. But something doesn't change. Something is constant and something is variable. So the body is changing. Something doesn't change. What's that? Something. So, now why is it so important to understand the position of the soul? There's a reason. If you dismiss the statement, the soul and the body, then that means do what you want. There's going to be no reward or punishment, because everything's going to end with death in any case. So, where's the question of reward and punishment? But that's wrong. All scriptures point out, yes, there is soul in the body. For example, even in the Bible, it is said, what shall I do if thou gaineth the whole world, but suffer the loss of your eternal soul? Exactly what the Bhagavad Gita says. Soul, and that's eternal. So Krishna explains in the second chapter, for the soul there is no birth nor death, not having much left that he ever ceased to be. So this point is important, because if you have this knowledge, then you will believe in the principle of eternity. We are all eternal. We often cry and say, he's gone. He's gone where? Often people say, heavenly abode. When you go to heavenly abode, you have to do a lot of homework. You can't abstain from homework and think you've gone to the heavenly abode. So Bhagavad Gita says, within the body there is a soul. And what's the nature of the soul? It is eternal. But this is not easily acceptable by everyone. There are many sections in society that believe in the principle of reincarnation. It's nicely supported in that book we have on reincarnation. But everyone doesn't believe in it. And the main reason why people don't want to believe in it, they don't want to entertain the idea I could be punished for all the nonsense I'm doing. They would like to believe I'm doing no nonsense. So Krishna explains there is the position of the soul. And as you probably know, what's the measurement of the soul? 100,000, the tip of your hair. Take the tip of your hair, divide it into 100 parts, then take one, and divide it further into 100 parts. That is the measurement of the soul. And what is this? What is the evidence? The evidence is consciousness. As long as there is soul in the body, it is consciousness. Now this is knowledge. You may say, we've heard this many times. We know this. We know this, but we always don't practice it. Because if you believe and accept that the soul, that you are eternal, then your actions would be of a different nature. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who re-established the pure teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, has stated, this second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita is the most important of all the chapters, because this is the foundation of spiritual life. The foundation of spiritual life, spiritual knowledge, is the understanding that I'm not this body. So we are not saying don't care for this body. People stand in front of mirrors, do they? Yes, no?
Yes.
Why? You want to see if their beauty is increasing or not. Some look in the mirror 100 times a day. They think that just like Krishna's beauty increases every second, their beauty will be increasing also. So if you want to compliment someone, you just have to tell them how beautiful he looks. But these days, complimenting people is becoming easier. Everyone's so attached to keeping dogs and cats, isn't it? Just tell them, your dog is so beautiful. And they feel flattered. Oh yeah? So it becomes easy to flatter people. You know, when you go I walk every day in parks. So it doesn't matter which park you go to, which part of the West. The dog culture has become very widespread. Why should you blame the West? It's happening even in India now. And why are people so fond of keeping dogs? Who wants to venture and reply?
Because they are missing their children.
Yeah, okay, what else?
They are obedient. They follow.
They're tired of everyone. They bring up children, and when they grow up, they say bye-bye. And the dog remains loyal to the master. Through a bond, they become the best friend. And many go for the cats also. And they spend huge amounts. The veterinary doctors are more expensive than human doctors. And now they have health. And they have dog spas there. So anyway, these dogs have good karma, you get good masters. And those dogs that don't have good karma, they loiter on the streets. And those who have good karma, they have VIP masters. Anyway, the point is, why is the dog culture so common? Because we are all looking for, you may have learned in school, man is a social animal. So we need someone to associate with, we need someone to talk to, we need someone who is going to follow us. And of all the alternatives, the dog appears to be the best. So we spend our consciousness in this way. The same energy could be diverted to whom? God. Prabhupada said. When you have no friends, then you turn to dogs and cats. But we should direct the same energy towards the Lord. So Bhagavad Gita doesn't preach inaction, as some people may say. They say, oh, I own a Gita in my house. Why? There'll be quarrel. No. Bhagavad Gita describes a religious war that was executed for the purpose of establishing Dharma. In the 3rd and the 5th chapter, Krishna gives us knowledge about Karma Yoga. And he gives a very nice example. Lotus leaf is in water, but does it touch the water? It doesn't touch the water. So similarly, Krishna says, work in the spirit of detachment. These days, as you all know, there's so much stress, tension in society. One of the reasons is we are so attached to the results. We are so attached to our goals. We are so attached to our desires. And what's the nature of the desire? Can these desires ever be fulfilled? Yes, no? No. It's just like you have a itching sensation. When you have an itching sensation, you itch, you scratch, give you some instant relief, but then the disease becomes worse. So Krishna teaches us to work in the spirit of detachment. To work in the spirit. I am not the proprietor. I am not the enjoyer. I am not the creator. Who is the creator? Ishvara Parama Krishna, Sachidananda Vigraha. Radhe Radhe Govinda, Seva Karna Karna. we should have deep-rooted understanding that Krishna is the cause of all causes and the Supreme Lord. This is very clearly concluded in the Bhagavad Gita. It's not that we are creating some imagination. Sometimes people think, oh, these ISKCON people are promoting this. No. We are promoting what is in the scriptures. And scriptures means what? Dharmanti Sakshat Bhagavat. Scriptures means love, knowledge coming from God. Free of any flaws. No, ordinary people have many flaws. Have tendency to cheat. Is that true? People cheat in Detroit. Tendency to make mistakes. Illusion. And you make mistakes. In the presence of these inherent defects, there is no question of imparting perfect knowledge. How old is the Bhagavad Gita? 5,000 years old? No. 5,000 years ago, Krishna said, I imparted this knowledge to the sun god, Vivasva. Like every country had a head of state who had a name and personality. So every planet also has a presiding deity. And Vivasvan is the presiding deity of the sun planet. So from there the knowledge went to Manu, Shaku, and then Manu. But in course of time the knowledge was lost. Therefore I'm restating the knowledge, because you are my confidential friend and devotee. So Prabhupada says in the introduction to the Gita, that the Gita should be understood through the eyes of a devotee. Just see for yourself. There have been hundreds of editions of Bhagavad Gita. How many devotees did they make? And since the appearance of Bhagavad Gita, as it is, we've made millions of devotees all over the world. And we've distributed millions of copies. So Bhagavad Gita is a book of knowledge. Prabhupada said, if you just take one verse and apply it fully in your life will become successful. That is the power of the Bhagavad Gita. It has 700 verses. So Bhagavad Gita should be carefully cultivated. You know that story when Lord Chaitanya was traveling in southern India. He came to this famous temple, Sri Rangam. There was an uneducated Brahmin who would sit in one place and recite 18 chapters of the Gita every day. We don't even do it in 1 year, but he would do it every day. And because he was uneducated, some shlokas would be pronounced properly, some improperly. In many shlokas he didn't understand the meaning. He would still do it. Why? Because his guru told him, you must read 18 chapters of the Gita every day. So he would do it religiously. But Lord Chaitanya, when he came there, he saw his face. There were tears coming from his eyes, his hair standing on end, and he was wondering. Lord Chaitanya could see this man is displaying genuine symptoms of ecstasy. This man is not an ordinary man. So Lord Chaitanya asked him, oh Brahmin, what is it in the Gita that's making you display these symptoms? And the Brahmin said, when I see Lord Krishna, the Supreme Lord, becoming Arjuna's chariot driver, seeing the humility of the Lord, tears come from my eyes, and my hair stands on end. And when I read these verses of the Gita, and I display these symptoms. Lord Chaitanya then told him, you have really understood the Gita. He embraced him. And he kept him for 4 months with him and instructed him every day on the philosophy of the Bhagavad Gita. So Bhagavad Gita is a book that Lord Chaitanya recommended also. And Bhagavad Gita is a book of knowledge. Covers every aspect. We have distress, tension. Bhagavad Gita teaches us to work in the spirit of detachment. If we work in the spirit of detachment, then you won't have depression. Then you won't have nervous breakdown. Why do people get nervous breakdown? They're so attached to their goals, to their ambitions, when you can't realize it, you go mad. Whereas if from the beginning you thought, I'm going to do my duty, the proprietorship mentality makes us attached. We would like to believe that I can possess everything. So Bhagavad Gita teaches us work the mood of detachment. And detachment is only possible if you also have spiritual knowledge. If we don't have spiritual knowledge, what is our mentality? Greed. In the 8th canto, you read about Vamandev. Vamandev had incarnated himself as a young Brahmin boy. And he came to the assembly where Bali Maharaj was performing the sacrifice. Bali Maharaj saw Vamandev, beautiful, young, handsome Brahmin boy, and said, what can I do for you? You've come to purify me, my ancestors. What can I do for you? And Vamandev said, if you want to give me something, just give me enough where I can keep 3 footsteps. I was shocked. That's all? You go to a big man and that's all you ask for? Ask me for a whole planet, I'll give you. What's that? It's peanuts. It's nothing. But then Vamandev said, one who can't control his senses, he will not be satisfied, even if you give him the wealth of the whole world. One who can control his senses will be satisfied in any condition. Prabhupada in this connection gave us the example of the Goswamis. Of course you may say, we can't be compared to the Goswamis, we know that. But nevertheless, it's important to meditate. For example, Raghunath, he was the son of a millionaire. At that time, 500 years ago, his father's income was over 12 lakh rupees a month. Imagine, in Prabhupada's words. And he came to Vrindavan. And how was he living? He was living by doing madhukari. Rupa Goswami, at one time, was running the richest kingdom on the planet. 500 years ago, as I've stated before, the richest country in the world was India. And the richest kingdom within India was the kingdom of Bengal, that had a Brahmin ruler. And the person running that kingdom were the 2 brothers. So Rupa Goswami also renounced his job and came to Vrindavan. And when he resigned, he had enough gold coins to fill a whole boat. When he came to Vrindavan, how did he live? Lived by sitting back madhukari. Sanatana Goswami was going house to house. Then he came to the house of a devotee called Purushottam Chobe. This Purushottam Chobe had a deity of Madan Mohan. And they were treating the deity as one of their family members. The mother would say, "He's my son." And the brother would say, "He's my brother." The sister would say, and they would hug him. And so Sanatana Goswami was going house to house doing Madhukari, begging. And he saw the behavior. Sanatana Goswami said, "This is not the way you teach the deity of the Lord. People are hugging him, feeding him prasad. You should treat the Lord with reverence." And the mother and father said, "This deity is just one of our children. I treat him exactly like the other children." So that night, then Sanatana went home. And in the night, that Brahman had a dream. And in the dream, the Brahman said, in that dream, the Lord told the Brahman, "So far you've served me very nicely for so many years, but now I want that you give me over to that Sanatana, that beggar who came." And in the dream, the Lord told Sanatana Goswami, "Now I want you to worship me with proper etiquette." Because in the Hari Bhakti Vilas, which was compiled by Sanatana Goswami, there's a detailed explanation of how the Lord is worshipped. The Lord appears in his Archa Vigraha form, which is not different from the Lord. And if we think, "Oh, this is just some statue," then it will remain a statue. If you believe, here is God, present in the deity form, then this God will also speak to you. And you will say, "Oh, God will speak to us? How is that possible?" You know the story of Sakshi Gopal. A young Brahman was being accused of drugging up his father. And the young Brahman's son said, and the rich man's son said, "Do you have any proof that my father promised you my sister in marriage?" He said, "Yes." "What's the proof?" "The deity of Gopal." So the rich man's son was thinking, "Deity of Gopal? That's in Vrindavan? How is the deity going to testify that my father gave this promise?" He said, "Okay, bring the deity." So the young Brahman, his reputation was at stake. He went running to Vrindavan, Orissa, fell at the feet of the deity and said, "My reputation is at stake. Please save my honor. I want you to testify the rich Brahmin promised his daughter in marriage." The Lord said, "But I can't walk. How do you expect me to walk from Vrindavan to Orissa?" And the poor Brahmin said, "If you can walk, if you can talk, you can also walk." And the Lord said, "Okay, now I'm defeated by you." And the Lord followed him. So it all depends on our mentality. There are so many wonderful other examples. Sanatana Goswami was ordered in a dream, "Go and take the deity and establish proper worship." So Sanatana Goswami made a hut and he started worshipping the deity in that hut and offering him just dry chapatis that he would. One day the deity said, "Sanatana, you're giving me dry chapatis. Can you please add salt to my chapatis?" And Sanatana said, "No, I can't. Whenever I start offering you salt, tomorrow you'll say, give me pure butter, the other you'll say with this, and then my budget will go away. So I can't." So he was worshipping the deity, just dry chapatis. There was a rich man, businessman, going in a boat loaded with salt to sell it in Agra. But the boat got stuck right in front of Sanatana Goswami's cottage. And the boatman was worried, because in those days there were a lot of dacoits in these holy places, and it was getting dark. So he saw all around, he saw a cottage with a light. So he went to that cottage and he prayed to the deity of Mother Mohan. And as he was praying, the boat, which was stuck in mud deep, started moving on its own. Then this person went and made a lot of money. He brought the money back and gave it to Sanatana Goswami. And then Sanatana Goswami took the money, said, "You keep it and make a temple of Mother Mohan." And then he made a beautiful temple of Mother Mohan. All the temples in ancient India, even now, were made by kings. The churches in Europe are all made by kings. Big mosques are all made by monarchy. That is perfection. So, Sanatana Goswami revealed the dream, and then he told the businessman, "You got a temple of the Lord." So, a devotee is satisfied in any condition. Mahadev said, "You want me to ask more? For me, 3 footsteps are enough. But one who can't control his mind and senses will never be satisfied, even if you give him the what? The wealth of the whole world." That's true. If you look at the global statistics on income, you see that the rich are getting richer. Is that right? About 10% of the people own 85% of the wealth, 70% of the wealth in India, and the global average is slightly less. But 10% of the people who are controlling 90% of the income. That is pure capitalism. Forget communism, forget socialism. It is pure capitalism. And the rich get richer. Why? They are not satisfied. They don't think an income of 50 billion a year is enough. I must get more. That is the nature of material life. The Bhagavad Gita says, that's wrong. Bhagavad Gita says, Bhoktaram Megadapaso, Krishna is the proprietor. You're making 100 million, you share it with Krishna. That we won't do. So Bhagavad Gita teaches us how to work in the spirit of detachment. And Bhagavad Gita also points out, all of them, as they surrender to me, I reward them in proportion. All of them. It's not that everyone gets the same result. All of them, as they surrender to me, I reward them accordingly. So we should know Krishna's protection is always there. God is very kind, as we say. But the degree of coverage, protection, security is based on what extent do we want to surrender. If we want to chant His names, read His books, do what He wants us to do, then there's one result. If we just want to surrender, just for name's sake, Nam Ke Vaste. I want to do my own, execute my own plan. And Krishna, you can cheat me, I can cheat you. We can cheat the income tax officials. Can you cheat Krishna? No. I thought you can't cheat Krishna. Krishna is a witness to everything. So Bhagavad Gita teaches us, perform yajna, dana and tapasya. Yajna refers to the process of self-realization in this age. In every age, there's a different system of yajna. Sacrifice. You don't walk in a drugstore, close your eyes, and lift any medicine. Do you? For a particular disease, there's a particular cure. In Satyuga, the lifespan was 100,000 years. People could meditate very easily. Valmiki meditated for how long? 60,000, 70,000 years. So, process of meditation. Then came Treta Yuga, where the lifespan got reduced further 10 times. And the process was elaborate yagyas. The Brahmanas could ignite fire just by chanting mantras. They didn't need a cigarette lighter or a match. And the Brahmanas, there was no shortage of ingredients at that time. And the Dwapara Yuga, lifespan gets reduced another 10 times to 1,000. And the process was elaborate worship. If you offer elaborate gifts to the Lord, what's going to happen in today's environment? The thieves are going to come and steal it. Or the government will steal it. There are two thieves now. The government and the real thief. Like in India, you see, many of the prominent temples are under government control. And the government uses the money for financing factories. Prabhupada went to Tirupati in 1976. I was with him. So he was addressing the chief minister of the state, and ministers had come to meet him. Prabhupada told him, the money which you get offered to Balaji should all be used to propagate Krishna consciousness, not to finance factories and student loans. So that's the problem. So people don't have proper knowledge. So Bhagavad Gita gives us that knowledge. And we should, there's another illusion. People think Bhagavad Gita is just theory. It's not theory. The basic theme of Bhagavad Gita is to recognize that Lord is the proprietor, and we should all act in devotion. Acting in devotion means acting for the pleasure of the Lord. And if we act for the pleasure of the Lord, then he will be content. Then the person will be content. If we don't practice spirituality, can you be content? No. Then your mantra is more. Beg, borrow, steal. I have to get rich. That is the mantra today in society. Whereas if you have spiritual knowledge, you'll feel, I can make an effort and leave the rest in the hands of the Lord. Whatever is my quota, that will be happening. That will be realized. And in the end, so Krishna says, don't give up three things. Yagya, dhan, and that's yagya, chanting the holy name. Yesterday we were talking about the importance of the holy name. And what does the scripture say? Harinam eva kevalam. Then dana. Dana means giving in charity. So someone may say, I have nothing to give, what should I give? And someone may think, I have a lot to give, but I'm not going to give it. I'm going to keep it in my custody. Okay. But dana means this charity. We can give in charity this transcendental knowledge. We should give in charity this transcendental knowledge, because the whole world is suffering because they're bereft of this transcendental knowledge. Then tapasya. Tapasya means austerity. Nobody likes austerity today. Is that true or false? There are so many religious preachers all over the world. Examine their speeches and you'll see, you'll never hear the word tapasya. Never. Why? Because they're scared. If they talk of tapasya, people will run away. Prabhupada, when he was in New York in his first year in America, he had a meeting with the so-called Swamis who had come from India. They were telling Prabhupada, don't wear dhoti kurta. You should start wearing suits like us and learn Western manners, eating with fork and knife. And don't tell them these four regulated principles. Prabhupada said, no. He didn't come to compromise. And he gave the pure truth. So the pure sage presents the real truth. And those are fortunate to take that. So Krishna, in the end, what is tapasya? Tapasya means you voluntarily gave up what is detrimental for spiritual advancement. And you voluntarily accept what is conducive for spiritual advancement. That's like in a day-to-day life. People are very health conscious. So don't you give up what's bad for good health. And you accept what is conducive. So that is important, tapasya. You voluntarily accept the inconvenience for the pleasure of the Lord. What are some of the voluntarily acceptance? Tongue. Tongue likes to eat without discrimination. So I'm not going to eat without discrimination. I'm not going to eat meat, fish, and eggs. Or I will be a vegetarian. But that's not enough. Krishna says that if you don't eat food stuff, if you don't order food, offer food stuff to me, then what are you doing? Eating only what? Eating only sin. So our philosophy is, I will eat only Krishna Prasad. That's the austerity. The austerity of the body is, and use the body for service to the Lord. The austerity of the mind is, instead of thinking about pornography, think about the teachings of the Lord. And as Prabhupada said, and Krishna says in the Gita, those who worship me with devotion, I preserve what they have, and I make up what they lack. So Krishna is ready to help you, but you have to make the effort. So please make it a point to read the Bhagavad Gita. We've told many times, everyone, every devotee should read at least one verse. The Brahman story that we revealed, he was ordered by the Guru to read 18 chapters of the Gita. If you can't read 18, read at least one or two verses with purport. And then meditate on that all day. Then what will happen? You will feel Krishna's presence. When the Lord departed from the planet, his eternal associate Arjuna was very sad, despondent, morose, like Krishna has gone, just like the gopis. They could not bear separation from Krishna. They could not bear that Krishna was gone to Dwarka. Once Krishna wanted to test his devotees. He called Narada Muni and said, Uddhava, please get the dust from the feet of my devotee. Uddhava went everywhere. Everyone said, dust from our feet to touch the face of the Lord? Impossible. And then Uddhava came back and said, I went to the Gyanis, the yogis, and everyone said, we are not giving the dust from our feet to touch the forehead of the Lord. Then the Lord said, did you go to the gopis also? And Uddhava said, oh, that's what I forgot. So he went to the gopis in Vrindavan. When he reached Vrindavan, he saw that the gopis were positioned in an angle where they could see Dwarka. And they were just meditating on Krishna and Dwarka. And then Uddhava said, what's the gopis thought? Oh, he must have brought some message from Krishna. But they didn't get any message, he said, the Lord's having a severe headache. He wants the dust from the feet of his devotee. You mind? I take some dust. He said, no, take it with pleasure. Because our goal is to make Krishna happy. That will cure his headache, fine. They didn't think, what the consequences would be. So, tapasya means voluntarily renouncing detrimental habits. We have certain bad habits. Give them up if we want to succeed spiritually. And then in the end, what does Krishna say? Sarva dharma parityaja amtam sarva papabhaya mokshammi masuja. Do not worry. Surrender to me, I will protect you. When the government gives you $100 bill and says, we will pay on demand, we have confidence. I can go anywhere in the world and cash $100 bill. That's one thing about US currency. It's international. But when Krishna says, come to me, I'll protect you, we hesitate. We have second thoughts, third thoughts. So we need to be in the association of devotees. Study the Bhagavad Gita, read the Bhagavad Gita, and apply the Bhagavad Gita. Not just theoretical knowledge. We should all develop detachment. We should all learn the principle of contentment. But you can only be content if you have spiritual knowledge. Otherwise, man's greed has no limit. The sky is the limit, they say, to man's greed. And our greedy desires will just haunt us. Sense enjoyment will haunt us. We will never think we can give up sense enjoyment. Once Akbar asked his Prime Minister, how long does this lust remain? And how long is it going to bother us? The Prime Minister said, sir, if you want me to be honest, this will wait till death, till old age. This temptation from Akbar said, I don't believe it. So one day the Prime Minister came and said, please come with me. You want to visit a dyke man and bring your beautiful daughter with you. So they went. And when they reached that location, the Prime Minister told the king, just see where the eyes were. The eyes of this man are. And his eyes were on the king's daughter. Akbar said, now I understand why you brought me here. So, if we have spiritual knowledge, you will know that the senses can never be satisfied. Doesn't matter how hard I try. In the end, there will be frustration. So, if you want to escape detachment, if you want to escape tension, then develop the spirit of detachment and realize that Krishna is the ultimate proprietor. And once you recognize that Krishna is the real proprietor, many of us pay lip service. We say, yes, yes, Krishna is the proprietor. Don't you see Krishna's pictures are all over the wall? But when the sadhus come, I say, I'm not at home. So you have to demonstrate in practice. Krishna is the proprietor, and get in the mood of service, and you'll be satisfied. What does Krishna say in the end? Sarvadharma parityaja mameka. So this should be our guiding spirit, where Krishna says, do all your actions for me, and I will protect you. Do not worry. So we are full of worries, as Govindadas Kaviraj said. And to escape that mental situation, to chant and work for the pleasure of the Lord. And Bhagavad Gita is a book of knowledge that guides us how to be content, how to be detached, how to be peaceful, and how to be happy. Brahma Bhuta Nasochatina Kamshali. Once it's transcendently situated, it doesn't lament or hanker. It's happy in serving me. So that happiness can be realized even by us. If we read the Gita, meditate on the Gita, and apply the Gita in our day-to-day lives. Hare Krishna.
Hare Bol.